It is time. Lifeway launches Bible for children with dyslexia. What is that? Interesting. New Bible design specifically for children with dyslexia has been launched by Lifeway Christian Resources called the CSB Grace Bible for Kids. It's intended for children ages 7 to 12 and aims to enhance readability for young readers. In that Bible, Jesus is the Omega and the Alpha. Well done. That was quick. That was very good. Very impressive. So funny. My first thought just goes to like, what translation though? I wonder is what they're using, because kids, it's got to be like the NLT or something, which is very poetic and beautiful. How do you accomplish this? The Bible incorporates a specially designed typeface and layout developed by blah blah in collaboration with Cambridge University. The design includes added space between letters, words, lines, and paragraphs, as well as a distinct letter form to improve readability. Interesting. I'd be interested to see it. It's cool. It's cool that they're doing that. That's a neat thing. Very, very interesting. What do we know about the brothers and sisters of Jesus? That's always a fun topic. That's always enough to make a lot of people real mad, especially Catholics. Pastora, the beautiful, the lovely. How are you, Pastora? Besides beautiful and lovely, because those are a given. She's the queen of the emojis. There's always emojis I've never seen before, but also I'm just uncultured, so I'm sure that's just me. If I had to guess, that's just me. Patricia. Okay, well, boring stuff out of the way. If you're watching this later, we have a Discord. The Discord is in the pinned live chat link at the top, or it's in the description of the video, or the description of any video. It's also on the profile. It's everywhere. And if you have me on social media, it's there too. My personal stuff is at Tattoo Theist. There's Discord links all over that. Otherwise, it's in all these videos, so it's very easy to find. The Discord is wonderful and lovely, and where all the lovely people are. So if you're a total geek weirdo about this stuff, good place to be. Great place to be. And it's just getting better, especially as I learn how to do things that I should have known how to do a long time ago. It's just going to get better. Okay, well, there's that. Fun stuff. Other housekeeping things. Actually, let me keep that up. Tuesday. I explained this in announcements, but I know we had a snafu with the announcement section earlier today. So in case anybody didn't see it, I would... Oh, this is very old. I would check this out, because Tuesday we should be good to go for 7 p.m. Central Time for the topic discussions again. Make sure you pay attention to the Discord events. Just use those links, please. Because any reason you don't go vertical? Well, because YouTube doesn't prefer vertical. We're vertical on TikTok. And for a while when I was doing Instagram, we were vertical. But YouTube doesn't prefer vertical. And YouTube's the primary outsource. So anyways, for all the live streams that we do, I would just default to using the Discord events. It's on the phone, it's on the computer. On the phone, it's in the same little sidebar thing, but it's the top and it looks like a page or something. I don't know. There's only a couple icons there. It's there though. But use that because starting Tuesday, we will be adding the third stream, which is the open forum topic discussion. So I have a whole slideshow put together for us for that. And then it's just going to be a discussion. So I'll just present basically the topic. I don't intend to talk very much. I don't like that. If you've been here for a while, you know that, and I'll complain really hard about it if I have to, or we'll just stop doing it. So it needs to be a discussion. So Tuesday, we should be good for 7 p.m. If you come in here, you'll see it says live topic discussion. It also says might be canceled because Kat and I have a very exciting thing happening in life. But Tuesday night is kind of the final moment of it until it's stable, I guess. I don't know how to say it. But Tuesday night, we have an appointment. We have something we have to do, and then we'll know what's up. So there's a possibility if it runs late, I won't be able to make it, so I'll cancel it. But if you look, starting the following week, Tuesdays, it's on for every week because we should be good. It's either going to be at 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. We're going to start at 7 just in case. And then if I can move it back to 6 so that all of the streams are at 6 o'clock, then I'm going to do that just for like ease of use for everybody. But if you look, it's there, it's ready to go. But I just kind of explained that. I'll let you know in the announcement, so pay attention to that Tuesday night if I'm not going to be able to make it. If we can't make it, Kat and I will post a video in Discord explaining why, a justification for it, and then we will start next week. But we're hopeful that we should be good. We should be back like just in time, so maybe 5-10 minutes late, but just in case. I think L means vertical, like your phone. Like when you stream to TikTok, it's vertical, so it looks different. Whereas this is horizontal, you know. Don't tell Joe, but no more. Okay, well that's that. Also, I gave a warning and off topic earlier today that I've been doing a bunch of stuff in Discord, and we already had a few little issues that I was able to solve, thank God. But if you see anything weird happen in Discord, other than me changing names or organizing things different, I'm doing that on purpose, obviously. But if you have an issue, like people weren't able to see announcements for a while today, let me know about that. Please just tag me in off topic and I'll fix it. But there will be some snafus probably because I'm dismantling the way this thing was like built from the inside because somebody built it who is not me. And we're changing some stuff. So I have to kind of undo everything that she did. And I foresee some issues happening. So please just let me know and be patient while I get all that stuff sorted out. Scott, what's going on? So freaking funny, dude. So freaking funny. All right, we are in the Genesis. This is 31. And the Discord voice chat is open. And by the way, when we do Tuesdays, it'll function the same way. But if you want to talk during the stream, you'll have to just be in the Discord voice thing, which is already what we do. So hopefully everybody already knows that. But that's how that'll work. But I'm excited. The whole fasting thing will be good. Ghost said I've never fasted before, so I'm hoping to get schooled. It should be good. It should be good. I like fasting as a topic for a lot of different reasons. There are a lot of just purely secular scientific reasons to fast, in my opinion. And then there are obviously your religious and spiritual reasons, which just make it all the more interesting. Then add in all the other religions who do it, and it gets more interesting. It's almost as if there's something to it, regardless of what you believe. Genesis 31. Jacob flees from Laban. So if you remember, I guess like a quick reminder of something that would be relevant was last week we had Jacob pull one of the greatest heists of all time in the Bible. It was really elaborate, really well done, where he, to say it in the simplest possible way that is not accurate, but it paints a picture, he essentially painted livestock in order for them to fall within his contract of which livestock he got. He marked them so that they'd be his. And then he became extremely wealthy off doing this. Very intelligent, very smart. But I remind you, because it comes up again in this next section here. Rodriguez, what's going on? It's so nice to see all the love in there, man. It's so nice. It just warms the heart. Now Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's, that was him doing the heist, and from what was our father's, he has gained all this wealth. Reminder of Laban, Rebekah's brother, and the father of Jacob's wives, who are Leah and Rachel. The wives, remember, because it's somewhat pertinent, are both his wives because he was initially duped. So initially he wanted one sister. The father, Laban, tricked him into sleeping with the wrong sister so that he had to marry her. He had worked 7 years to marry the one he wanted, got tricked into marrying the wrong one. So then he worked another 7 years for their father to get the other one, which is the one he wanted initially. So what ended up is that he got both of them. So now he has 2 wives, one that he didn't really want and one that he did want. And we continue on. So now they're saying Jacob has taken all that was our father's, the sons of Laban, not the daughters, because the daughters are his wives and they would never say that. Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from what was our father's, he has gained all this wealth, the great Khan. And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. It's because dad had practiced that trickery. He had duped Jacob to get the advantage over him because he wanted to be in an advantageous position in terms of their agreement for work, right? Whereas he got 14 years of work from Jacob versus 7 years of work for Jacob. And Jacob gets the 2 wives, one of which he did not want. Then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. Let me make this bigger because I forgot contacts and glasses and I can't see. And I already foresee this being a problem. I will be with you. This was said in chapter 28, where Yahweh said, behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. This is the recurring promise that has been passed from generation to generation, essentially, all throughout Genesis, from father to son between Yahweh and that individual. And then Jacob had his own promise where Jacob made a vow back saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, I will give my bread to eat and clothing to wear. So God gave him the promise carries on, and now you have an echoing of said promise. I appreciate the bigger font because I'm getting all, okay, good. Well, I can do that. We can make it even bigger, as long as it's not annoying for you guys. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah into the field where his flock was, and said to them, I see that your father does not regard me with favor as he did before. But the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength for 14 years. Yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. This isn't literal, which I get is confusing because in context, it would make a lot of sense because Jacob is working for Laban. But that's not actually what he's talking about. So it's a rhetorical expression that you can actually find more than one place in the Bible. And in the other places, the context around it would make no sense for it to be an actual changing of the wages. So it's just an expression. It just happens to fit in the immediate context, which makes it confusing. But it was just a rhetorical expression that means time and time again, over and over again, which is exactly what was happening to you. So your father cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. So over and over. But God did not permit him to harm me. If he said, the spotted shall be your wages, then all the flock bore spotted. And if he said, the striped shall be your wages, then all the flock bore striped. Thus God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. In the breeding season of the flock, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream, common communication, that the goats that mated with the flock were striped, spotted, and molted. Then the angel of God said to me in a dream, normal communication between the divine and the humans in the Old Testament, said to me in a dream, Jacob, and I said, here I am. Also very common. So many dozens of times do we have this kind of back and forth between the divine and the human of name, here I am. Verse 12, and he said, lift up your eyes and see, all the goats that mate with the flock are striped, spotted, and mottled. For I've seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Messengers in the ancient Near East, this is from Logos, and the ancient Near East were entitled to speak in place of the one sending them. Messengers were entitled to speak in the place of the one sending them, which makes sense because we've already had tons of that all throughout Genesis. Elsewhere in the Old Testament, the angel of Yahweh is said to be the embodiment of Yahweh's own essence, which we also have talked about previously in Genesis, because there have been numerous points already where you've had both used relatively close together, so you kind of have to try to distinguish which is the embodiment of Yahweh, or that the author believes is and is trying to express, and which is a messenger in place of speaking the message for Yahweh. So I'm the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now arise and go from this land and return to the land of your kindred. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, is there any portion or inheritance left to us in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? Oh, I just heard something. I thought I was going crazy. Hi, Rodriguez. Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? We're at 15. For he has sold us. He has indeed devoured our money. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. So Jacob arose and set his sons and his wives on camels. He drove away all the livestock, all his property that he had gained from the great Khan. The livestock in his possession that he had acquired in Pada Aram, which we talked about earlier in Genesis 2, back in 27. It could be another name for what the Hebrew text refers to as Aram Naharaim. I think I'm close on that. Or a town in that region, that general region. And there's another note for Hosea 12:12, because there's a reference there too that geographically would possibly tie them together. The identification of Laban, the identification of Laban with both place names indicates that it is near Haran. Geographically, somewhat important because it pops up a couple of different times. Otherwise, almost completely unimportant. Could be a tad bigger. My eyes are bad. You want it bigger than this? I can make it a little bit bigger. My notes are going to be all skewed now. Gosa does change my wages 10 times. It means someone is stubborn or hard to negotiate with. From my understanding, no. Just because of the other places that it comes up, I guess I should say, like, it very well could be, because contextually that makes sense to me. But bigger picture, just using the Bible alone, I would say probably not. Just because the other times it's used in more of a over and over context. But that would make perfect sense to me. So I guess, like, maybe contextually, possibly. Patricia, I think it might depend on the context of the situation. Right. That is also what I think. Rodriguez, I think 10 is usually involved in legal matters, which is also actually true. Yeah, that's a good point. I've never thought of it before. I heard that too. So then, if it would be something to look at. So if you want to look, there are three to five, I think, other points where the expression is used. Look at them, pull them up, look at them, and see if a different context would change the absolute meaning. From memory, I believe, though, that it's more of just a rhetorical way of expressing, like, over and over, 10 times, numerous times. But it'd be an interesting thing to get confirmation on for sure. So 18, that he had gained the livestock in his possession that he had acquired in Padan Aram to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. So he's fleeing, if that isn't clear. He's fleeing with his wives and all his wealth, which comes in the asset of livestock. Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household gods. This is where important things start to pop up. So dad, who is being fled from by his daughters and their husband, who had stole from dad. One of the daughters, Rachel, stole her father's household gods. This gets interesting, so I want to read this. The Hebrew text here uses the term teraphim. The precise meaning of this Hebrew term is uncertain, but it seems to refer to household gods, meaning idols or figurines that were thought to represent residents of the unseen spiritual world, which also contextually in 1 Samuel, I believe there's some corroboration with that, so it would make sense to me. The teraphim could have been used in a household worship, which could have been idolatrous in nature. However, it is also possible that they served another purpose that would not be thought of as idolatry. In 1 Samuel, the same term occurs without any suggestion of idolatry. As we continue here, though, contextually, there's a difference made between the Hebrew word that they used for this household gods and another point in the same section that to me kind of confirmed that this is probably idolatrous in nature, but we'll get there in a second. You know, Jacob seems like he gets his karma. A lot of people in the Bible do. It's kind of an interesting concept, that of karma, which I guess another way to just say it would be like divine justice is another way of saying karma.
Wouldn't it be like reaping and sowing?
Right. Yeah. Right. But I guess like in the Old Testament, contextually, if you think about it, it's like people always get what's coming to them for their bad nature, usually in the Old Testament by means of God himself. So it's divine.
Directly.
Right. Or indirectly, but specifically. From God specifically directly, or from God specifically indirectly. But no matter what, it traces back relatively clearly to God, I think. Personally.
Okay. Like natural disasters, disease, stuff like that.
Yeah, and if you think about it like that in the Bible, it's always very clear that God did it. If you think about the plagues and the fire, everything basically is like pretty clear that like God did that. It was a punishment for something. Usually.
Do you think that's still true today?
I don't. No, I don't. Which I'm sure will be a Tuesday talk.
Right. I'll stop.
For sure. No, I wasn't like hinting at you to shut up. I'm just saying, I think it's a really good topic. Yeah, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I think it's really interesting. And I know Ghost and I believe, had a pretty, not heated, but like a very, a good, thoughtful back and forth about God's involvement in the world today. So I'm sure we'll get there.
Can I say like one thing that was always weird that stuck out to me?
Yeah, go.
Summer in 2019, I remember, keep in mind, I live in Las Vegas. And there's like this weird apocalyptic picture that they have like on the news because we had like this plague of grasshoppers all over the strip. And it was just weird because we have like the Luxor pyramid on the strip. So to see like the pyramid with like all the grasshoppers flying over it, it was just weird. And I remember people saying like, oh my gosh, it's a sign. And people were like, no, that's stupid. But then COVID did happen like 6 months later.
Oh, yeah.
The strip was shut down. I don't know. There's a lot of things, though, that do make me kind of think, you know?
Then you think, like, here where we live, we had or I guess it was a lot of places, the locust thing this summer in June, I think.
Yeah.
Where like, it was abnormal. But then science kind of can explain it. So then you get in kind of this, like, a tougher spot of, like, well, the locust. I remember listening to this whole thing about, like, but they explained it very thoroughly. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, but then I start thinking, like, this is like quantum stuff. Because it's like, okay, did you just find, like, the science evidence behind what God is doing?
Yeah, right, which is the other side of it. That's why I think it's so interesting, is because you can kind of have this infinite regression of is it science explaining something that is not divine, or are you explaining through science something that is divine?
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like talking about a lot of that stuff. I think that'll be good. Okay. Patricia just said she wants to hear that conversation 1,000%.
Yeah, I just had to say that thing because I thought that was so weird with the Luxor in Vegas and all that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up, because now I will add that to our Tuesday topic thing, because, yeah, we should definitely talk about that.
And we are nicknamed Sin City, so.
That is true. That's a good point. All right, I added it for the Tuesday list, so we'll definitely do that. It'll be good. Joe and I only slightly disagree on that. It's mostly semantic. I think it's largely semantic, yeah. Because once we go at it for a while, I'm usually like, oh yeah, no, that's almost exactly what I believe. I just never would have looked at it like that. I never would have had those goggles on. But the basis of it, yeah, you and I are usually pretty damn close. Patricia said, I
Yeah.
believe God does still intercede in those ways personally. Right, which is why it's a good conversation. Because I'm like the very far end of the spectrum of no. I think God almost has zero involvement. But it's not that simple, but just for the sake of argument. And then there are people on, the very far other side of that. Go said
Well, there's also
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
there's also the opposite part of the spectrum where it's like, okay, then he probably can bless people too, right? Like
Right.
in a divine way, and
Right.
there's miracles. So it's like you can't really have one without the other.
Right, which is my problem.
To take
Yeah.
further, what you said a couple months ago, like when I got financial help and you felt like more was coming, and it did.
It's true. Yeah. It's
There you go, Joe.
I'm very unstable on it. I'm very unstable.
I know.
But I would rather have it that way than have brainwashed myself, for sure.
Cautiously optimistic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Ghost said, the basic gist of my position is that nothing about God interacts with humanity. Nothing about how God interacts with humanity has changed, but the way we write about it and describe it has changed. Yeah, and I usually, after we talk about it for a long time, I end up somewhere similar. But I always just have this nagging, like I have a hard time making it make sense. I'm unstable about a lot of theology.
We all are. Patricia. I don't know if you noticed.
Anybody who's not just got their head totally buried in the sand is wildly insecure about their theological beliefs.
I just have a lot of inquiries. I don't really have too many conclusions. I'm just like, but what about this?
But there is nothing better than that. There's not, like, from an objective perspective of like somebody who's engaged in the academic side of anything, the ability to be comfortable with having way more questions than you do answers, or having no answers, is like that. That's what fuels academia in general.
True.
It's a beautiful thing. Pastor said, I believe we experience opportunities, but they aren't random. All right, like that would be a way to say it, for sure. All right, I'm going to get way off track because now I want to talk about this, and it's not today. But I put it on the list, and then it'll be on the poll for next week because it's a great topic. Yes, Ghost. Yes. And I'm going to keep my mouth shut because I will just go on and on and on. Okay. Oh, right. Idolatry. So in 19, Rachel stole idols, some kind of tangible idol from dad's house when they fled with new husband Jacob. Verse 20, and Jacob tricked Laban the Aramean by not telling him that he intended to flee. So making it apparent that when Jacob and the new wives and all of the wealth that he had essentially stolen through the Great Khan, Ocean's 11 biblical style, they did not tell him this was a secret fleeing. So Laban is just coming to understand this information after the fact, and he was not privy that they were going to leave prior to them leaving. He fled with all that he had and arose and crossed the Euphrates and set his face toward the hill country of Gilead. Haran and Padan Aram, which were the geographical points that we talked about a minute ago, where Laban is departing from, is located in the bend of the Fertile Crescent, north of Canaan. This is from Logos. Gilead would be the first region travelers would encounter in the Transjordan, which I thought was really interesting because I did not know that, or at the very least did not remember it, but I don't think I ever knew that. And geographically, it's interesting that this would be the first place that they would pass through when encountering the Transjordan. Haran and Padan Aram, where dad is departing from to go find the fleers, I'm reading it again, just so you don't think you're crazy, is located in the bend of the Fertile Crescent, where if you look that up, very interesting, north of Canaan. Gilead would be the first region travelers would go through before they encountered the Transjordan. I just thought that was interesting because I'm a weirdo. So if you are also, look up the Fertile Crescent and then look up Gilead. And it's very interesting. Moving on. 22. When it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled, he took his kinsman with him and pursued him for 7 days and followed close after him into the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban, the Aramean, in a dream by night and said to him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." This is the third, by my count, dream reference in this section. And not to beat the dead dream horse, but just like keep it very much at top of mind that this was like a major way of communication in the Old Testament, regardless of what you believe about it, like a cynic like I am, or you may question people having dreams and them being from God. This was huge in the Old Testament. It's really hard to argue that this wasn't like a major means of communication between the divine and the humans. So it's something to just keep in mind. 9.9 times out of 10 in the Old Testament, when a dream is brought up and somebody said something in a dream or God came to me in a dream, it's meant to be absolutely literal, 100% literal. As much as it makes me uncomfortable personally, it doesn't change the reality that that is the context of the Old Testament without a freaking doubt. So God came to him in a dream by night and said to him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." So he's giving Dad a warning, and then we'll learn more about the warning later, but it's important context. And Laban overtook Jacob, so caught him. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban with his kinsmen pitched tents in the hill country of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done, that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee secretly and trick me, and did not tell me, so that I might have to send you away with the mirth and songs, with tambourine and lyre?" There's a little bit of attitude in that, and I like it. It's reminiscent of Paul in a lot of his epistles. But going back to the beginning of 26, what have you done? I highlighted that because it's important based on a lot of different things, but the major one being that this is used often and common. It's been used 1, 2, 3, 4 times, plus this is 5 in Genesis. It's used in Exodus twice. It's used in Numbers, and it's used in Judges. The Hebrew phrasing is commonly used because this is like, it's so hard to explain some of this stuff. Kind of like when we talked about the oath, where if you give someone an oath and you swear, it was to death. It meant everything. You didn't need anything else. Because if I give you my word, you know it's going to be done. Because if it doesn't, somebody's going to chop my head off. It was very, very serious. This is another one of those types of things. The way that it gets expressed is very, very serious. It's a very serious way for somebody to come to you and say, you hurt them or you did them wrong. What have you done? In English, it just doesn't hit the same. It's not the same. The other kind of thing I wanted to point out is just a little bit of irony is that so far in the latter half of Genesis up to this point where we are, is there so much of this dude doing dirty to somebody and then having dirty done to him, like we were just talking about a minute ago, like divine justice, karma. There's just so much of it. And so even here again, we have it flipping, where Dad Laban had tricked Jacob into sleeping with the wrong daughter so that he would work for another 7 years and marry the other daughter, which is the one he actually wanted to begin with. And he's coming to him like, "You tricked me and have driven away my daughters. You tricked me." Well, that's what he did to Jacob. And then trace it back, and well, Jacob had done it to someone else. And trace it back, and he had done it. It's just this very common theme.
Karma.
Karma is the easiest, like, modern word, or not modern, but modernly used word is, karma. What goes around
Or
comes around.
generational curses, too. I don't know. I'm interested in that.
That would be another way to say it. That was on our old list for Tuesday, too.
Was it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put it back on the new one, too. Yeah. That got really popular on social media like a year ago for some reason.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, I'll add it because it would be interesting. Okay, back to Genesis. Okay, so just interesting thing is the you call it karma, just back and forth. 28, and why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? Back up real quick. The very end of 27, where he said, I might have sent you away with basically a band and flowers, is essentially what he's saying. There is sarcasm to that. There has to be. Because reading it on its face makes no sense. And you can hint it, especially when you move into 28, which is why you can never just read one verse of the Bible, regardless of what your Bible app says. And why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? This is also sarcasm. He's being sarcastic. Maybe he would have done that anyways. But when you put the two verses together in the greater context, he's being sarcastic, because that's not what he would have done. He would not have sent Jacob away with a band and flowers and good tidings. It would have been a problem because of what had just transpired the section before and last week, in the chapter previously. 29. It is in my power to do you harm. So he's saying, I am well within my right to inflict physical pain on you. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Important note here is that God of your father. That's important. So just log it away, because we'll come back to it. And then he recounts the dream that he had. And now you have gone away because you longed greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? He's being accused of stealing the idols that Rachel stole. We have no reason from the text to believe that Jacob knew that Rachel had stolen the items. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But when you read on, it seems very clear that at least the author didn't want you to think that he did. So it's likely that he did not know about that. Why did you steal my gods? The word translated gods, interestingly enough, is Elohim, not the word in the verse previously, which was that teraphim. Since deceased humans are referred to as Elohim, which is true, at least in certain parts of the Bible, and there's a little bit of argument there, but it does happen, the interchange of terms strengthens the notion that teraphim were connected to the deceased human dead, making it idolatry, which is kind of where I got my view of the previous verse up here being idolatry. Her father's household gods. There's an argument, but I think it makes more sense than anything else, especially when you get back down to that other section where then you get Elohim used in place of gods rather than the teraphim word used for gods. To me, it draws a pretty clear line between the two. So he's confronting Jacob. Why did you steal my gods? Why did you steal my little idols? And Jacob answered back to him, because I was afraid. 31. Hold on. It's so big, I'm having a hard time finding any of my stuff. Give me 2 seconds. Here we go. Okay. Because I was afraid. For I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. So, different word. Either way, Jacob is saying he didn't know, or at least contextually, that's what we're gathering from it. He doesn't seem to know anything about Rachel stealing the gods and bringing them with. He does, however, answer why he did what he did. I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. That's his reason. Is that actually the truth, or is it not? Anyone could say. But he at least answers the question. He ignores the part about the gods. He doesn't answer it at all. Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what I have that is yours, and take it. Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them, or stolen the gods, depending on your translation. So Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the 2 female servants, but he did not find them. And he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. Laban felt all about the tent. He went around and looked, but did not find them. And she said to her father, let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the way of the woman is upon me. So he searched, but did not find the household gods. Now, oh no, hold on. It's so big. I do these small little gestures on the keyboard, and I'm just getting thrown out of place. So she says, the way of the woman is upon me. Meaning exactly what
I'm
it
on my
seems
period.
like. Right, exactly. So it's a reference to menstruating, that it shows up several times. But it's a lie, probably. Maybe she also is. But it's very clear that she has the idols. She put them in the camel's saddle that is under her. She sat on it. And then she's saying, I'm not going to stand up. I'm sorry, I can't stand up for you, Father. But the way of the woman is upon me. So he searched, but did not find the household gods. So she's getting out of getting caught, is all that it seems, or all that it seems. Then Jacob became angry and berated Laban. Jacob said to Laban, what is my offense? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide. I got to get used to this. The wheel of the mouse is no longer spinning the proportion of text that I'm used to. Folly pursue me, blah, blah, blah. Let him decide. Okay, put everything out. Let everybody see it. And let's let everybody decide what I have stolen from you. 38. These 20 years I have been with you. You and your female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flocks. This is just an odd way to say that he tended for and cared for the flocks. No, it doesn't mean literally the way that it's coming across in English. He just took care of the animals. That's it. What was torn by wild beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. From my hand you require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was by day, the heat consumed me, and the cold by night, and my sheep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I think we brought this up last week, but when Rebecca, mom, sent Jacob away to essentially hide, it was supposed to be for a short time. And then a number of years had passed. And now a lot of years has passed. 20 total years was a short time. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, the 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. Again, so argument there, if it's something you want to look into, you have changed my wages 10 times. Does it mean something else contextually because it would make sense in this chapter? Or is it like we see it elsewhere where it just means over and over and over again? If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. The fear of Isaac, it is here, and it is in verse 53 here in a minute, where it says, and we'll read it in a minute, but the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor and the God of their father judged between us. So Jacob swore by the father of his father, by the fear of his father Isaac. It shows up nowhere else in the Bible, this fear of Isaac. Obviously coming across because of the way that it's written as a divine title, similar to the God of Abraham, but it's just not something that we get anywhere else. It refers to the one whom Isaac, who is Jacob's father, revered, which is Yahweh, the God of Abraham. That is the commentary answer for what and why that is there. I'm not sure about that. I don't personally think it makes a lot of sense. I can understand why it's said, but it doesn't do it for me. So this is another thing that if you cared, it's an interesting thing to look into. I believe something different because of something that we'll read in a minute. So I'll explain once we get down there. Hey, Mikkel. Had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. Then Laban answered and said to Jacob, the daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. But what can I do this day for these my daughters, for their children, whom they have borne? Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar, standing pillars, this from Logos, and stone memorials often denoted a divine being or supernatural appearance. We know that from other places in Genesis. We also know it from other places in the Bible. In this context, Jacob and Laban commemorate God as witness to their pact of non-aggression. They're making an agreement. They're swearing an oath. They're doing the thing that we've already talked a lot about, so I won't go over it again. 46. And Jacob said to his kinsmen, gather stones, and they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it, no way, I'm going to say this right. I think it's Yegar Sadahutha. I don't know. This is a tough one, but it's an Aramaic term that means the heap of witness or the stones of witness. Either way, contextually, would make perfect sense. But Jacob called it Galid.
Joe, do you have I know like on the Blue Letter Bible app when you do like the concordance stuff, it has like a little speaker so it tells you how to say it. I don't know if you have that. I was just
I do not. No,
you know,
I do
putting
not.
that out there.
And I have not found those to always be trustworthy, though.
That's fair.
I've caught a few that have had me saying something in a very weird way. But I'm sure most of them are good. But no, the one I'm using doesn't have it, unfortunately.
Okay. And then what version are we reading?
ESV.
Sorry, I forget what version. ESV, got it.
Yeah,
okay, thank you.
Always ESV, yep. So word I can't say, but Jacob, that's dad's name. Laban called it that. Then Jacob calls it Galid. Like Laban's naming of the place, Jacob uses a Hebrew term that means the heap of witness. So either way, it lines up, makes sense. Laban said, the heap is a witness between you and me today. Therefore, he named it Galid and Mizpah. The Hebrew term used there, this from Logos, is related to the Hebrew verb taspa, I believe I'm saying that right, meaning to watch, which Jacob uses here in his description of what he requests Yahweh to do, which he's about to do. For he said, the Lord watch between you and me when we are out of one another's sight. If you oppress my daughters, or if you take wives besides my daughters, although no one is with us, see, God is witness between you and me. Then Laban said to Jacob, see this heap and the pillar which I have set between you and me. This heap is a witness, and the pillar is a witness that I will not pass over this heap to you, and you will not pass over this heap and this pillar to me, to do harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their fathers, judged between us. So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac, and Jacob offered a sacrifice in the hill country and called his kinsmen to eat bread. They ate bread and spent the night in the hill country. Early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned home. There is nothing, nada, in the stories of Abraham that his brother Nahor knew or followed Yahweh, which means, much like things around the Corinthian epistles, there has to be something missing. There is an argument, I suppose, of whether the authors assume the readers would understand and they don't need that context. But then, to me, that doesn't make sense big picture, because then that type of logic isn't followed throughout the rest of even the one authorship, this one text. The other end is what I believe is that we're missing something, whether it's missing verses, missing chapters, missing books, missing tons of stuff. Who knows? But to some degree, we have to be missing something, because the God of Nahor, we have nothing about this, and it would make no sense to not include that in the story somewhere. It's important context. In addition, the verb often translated as judge in this verse is plural in Hebrew, which could indicate that two separate deities are being called on to bear witness by Laban, Yahweh and Nahor's God. Interesting stuff. Get you stuck if you get too hard on it. Patricia said, wow, Jacob really effed Laban over, but Laban, a real man, to forgive him like that. Damn. Yeah, at least for now. At least for now. What time is it? Oh, man. We... Let me see. Yeah, no, we're gonna save the other chapter because I don't want to rush, and there's a lot in this one, but I don't have enough time. Yeah, so we're gonna cut it. We can just chat or whatever, or if you're just here for Bible study, then feel free to bail. But I will edit the title and everything. We will do 32 and 33 next week because I do not want to rush. I'd rather take the time. Nero probably worshipped the Sumerian gods, more than likely. Yeah, that would be like to me, that would probably be the most, that would probably make the most sense. If I had to guess. Yeah, Mikkel, I don't want to rush. I don't like rushing. I like to be able to get into some of the weird stuff and not feel like I have to read fast or skip things that I think would be good to talk about. So we'll save 33 and do 33 and 34. If you were just here for this, feel free to bail. Otherwise, we'll hang out for 10 minutes and then get out of here. The Nero thing will bother me now. Yeah, well, don't let it bother you. Just look into it. It's interesting. It's just one of those things that you just kind of have to deal with. It
like many things in the Old Testament.
Yeah, it's like many things, but it's interesting. It's like specific case though where somewhere in the text makes very clear that we are missing something specific. I feel like you're missing things no matter where you're at in the Bible. But there are like a select couple of handfuls of points where the author makes very clear that you were not given enough to understand this, but you should have been. There's an insinuation that you should know what's going on and you don't. And as a reader way, way far removed from the authorship, that's very frustrating because it's unlikely that we'll ever have those answers. But it's 53 if you care to look into it. 53, and then there are earlier references who, let me see. I want to say in the first 10 chapters of Genesis. I thought I had it here, but I don't.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Patricia said something earlier, and I'm trying to remember where it was at exactly, but the verbiage when it was talking about Elohim versus Teraphim, where is that exactly?
Let's see. That was 31. So the no, shoot, where was it?
By the way, I found that news article about Vegas and the grasshoppers on the strip. I put it on the off topic.
Oh, good. Yeah, I want to look at that. Okay, here. So the second reference that does use Elohim is 30. It's at the end of 30. Why did you steal my gods? So Genesis 31:30 is Elohim used. And
Okay.
then Genesis 31:19 is where the teraphim word is used. Both used to translate lowercase g gods. And then if it were me, I'd then cross them with every other time God's lowercase g is used in the Old Testament, starting with everything in Genesis, which isn't a whole lot.
Wow. It says family idol too. Here, Patricia, I'll put it on the thingy right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Joe, what's the other word for idol? Because that's not always the word used, right?
No, it's not. Let me see, because I think I actually had that written here too.
But it does say family idol, household shrine or worship. Oh my gosh, I think this is like, is this like what my, I don't know. Is this like Dia de los Muertos? Where's Mikkel?
He's there.
See, Just something so simple as God's always being translated to one or the other just makes me think of how many words
I
there
know.
are in the
Right?
Bible that we're misunderstanding.
Yeah. And
Which is relieving though, because there's more to learn.
Oh, it's relieving and terrifying because there's more to learn, but it seems like you'll never have the full picture. The worst thing about it is the drastic difference between Hebrew and Koine Greek. So on one hand, like on the Hebrew side, you have a bunch of issues because of the logistics of trying to move those meanings to English words, which is entirely different than the multitude of issues moving Koine Greek to English. Either way, though, they're like severely problematic. They're just severely problematic in different ways. It's very, very, very difficult. Is that the word you were talking about, Ghost? I put it in YouTube.
Yeah. I left a comment saying that I think that idols are like affirmations, and I don't know what you think about that.
What do you explain that more?
So, like when we put affirmations up on our wall, it's so that we see it every day and think a certain way. It's like it's guiding thought. And I think that's what idols did too. It was placebo. It's like they believed by doing the ceremony and opening the mouth and doing all that idol stuff that it was somehow activating it, like it was a Wi-Fi router or something, and it was in their home and they felt a certain way about it because it was in their home. So it shaped the thoughts of everyone in that house.
Do you think that would be intention dependent then? Because when I think about that in terms of like today, I like mantras and I do stuff like that. But there's zero part of me that believes in saying these words or in having this thing to remind me of something. I don't believe at all that alone will do anything at all, other than be, like you said, a reminder. Whereas the other side of like what I see today is people doing those things, but also believing the thing or the word or the saying will literally manifest things into reality.
Yeah, it's like a spectrum of woo-woo.
Right. So which do you think it was a spectrum back then too? Because I kind of do.
I think they took it more literally.
For the most part,
They didn't
for
see
sure.
it as like a, yeah.
I think they
That's what I
worshipped
think.
it. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Okay, then I want to know the difference between worshiping and honoring.
Oh, that's good. I just got into this with some people on
because
Twitter.
I don't know if Mikkel read it. Because there's like a holiday coming up in a few weeks, and it's like supposed to be like honoring your ancestors. I want to say that even, gosh darn it, Jared, I want to say that there's even like a Jewish holiday where you honor like the loved ones that were lost or something like that.
So,
well, that's kind of what your YouTube video was about too, Joe.
Right.
Like the one with the Catholic.
Right.
Oh, oops, my bad.
Thing.
Yeah, no, it's to me like most of this stuff, and I'm sure I'm annoying as hell. So much of it to me is like your intentions. I believe two people can do the same thing, and for one of them, it be idolatry or it be you worshiping an idol or whatever. And I think somebody else could do the same thing and it not be that. I don't think like doing these actions or any. I don't think that inherently does anything personally.
I agree. I think my family freaks out because I'm so sick. So they've given me like little St. Christopher's to put in my car, or I just do it. I'm like, okay, whatever. If it makes you feel better.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like inherently wrong with that. I think it's like you're playing with fire. Some people would be playing with fire. This is a good example. Was I believe, and I did not look into this, but it's either Catholic or Eastern Orthodox. Either way, there's this statue of Mary. They're putting like this cloak. I don't know what it's called. They put a dress on her, basically, that covers her head. Then they put a crown on her. Then they put rosaries over her. Then they lift her up and like carry her around on this big cloth. It's this whole big thing. Now, like the main argument for me is it's weird to me. It's a waste of time. I don't understand what it's doing or if it's supposed to do anything or if it's just paying homage. But I truly believe that there could be 100 people there and 50 of them could not be practicing idolatry, and 50 of them could. I think it entirely depends on what the person is doing. I don't believe you being around that or being like, Mary was great, maybe this is a little bit over the top, is you practicing idolatry. But I think the people who are organizing that and putting that together quite possibly are. But even then, I have a hard time like saying for sure. That's a very much in your heart type of thing. I think it's hard to say like based on watching something alone. It's tough.
Yeah, now
I
I
tend
want
to think worship is a word that describes like process or method. So you're doing a process or a method. So you're walking with Christ in the same kind of pattern that he walked. So that's the worship. It's not like going to a place and doing a ceremony. It's a 24/7 kind of deal.
I heard someone say one time that addiction was misplaced worship,
Yeah,
and that kind of stuck with me. And
it for sure is.
and that's a lot what you said.
I mean, I'm
I'd agree with that.
most of you know I'm or was an addict. I've been clean for a long time, but I was big into a lot of different things, and it definitely is. And I agree with Ghost 100%. It's the act of actually doing and like being in tandem with. I think you have to be. It's beliefs almost, or in some way has to be tied to beliefs. I don't think you can worship something if you don't believe. And if you think about like somebody faking to be religious, because that does happen, they can go to church and they can put their hands up and they can get prayed over by the whoever at the front while people scream and throw water. It doesn't mean they're worshiping. They could look like it. They could even be doing the practice of it. But there also still has to be like that internal process or alignment.
Okay. It looks like when I look up the word idolatry, one of the many words, it says that it could be like an object of reverence and means of divination. So yeah, it's probably when you add like this spiritual component to the object or person, like supernatural.
Right. It's got to be there. Just think, like I could go and I could buy a Buddha statue and I could get a yoga mat and I could light some candles and I could get on my knees and I could even bow down to it. But if I don't respect the Buddha as like this idol or as an individual or the tenets that he taught, whatever, if I have no respect for it, I don't believe in any of it, I have no tie to it emotionally, psychologically, or intelligently, what the hell does that actually do? Which has kind of been my argument forever with yoga. And I've argued with many people about the whole practice of yoga. Yoga is really good for your body. It's a very good thing. Coming from the fitness industry, I'm never going to say anything different than that. Yoga is extremely healthy. It's very good for you. Do I think that you can practice yoga spiritually and then have it? Sure, but you could do that with anything. You could go skateboarding and spiritually be tied into the wrong things and be doing, it's just as much evil. The practice of moving your body, and then you get into the arguments of, well, the poses and this and that, whatever. Yoga inherently is not bad. Doing most things inherently is not bad. Are you involved?
Physical therapists use it also, so
right. I mean, it's objectively good for your body.
Yeah.
Objectively. But you could certainly do it in a spiritual manner, I believe, and be practicing idolatry or be trying to tap in or unwittingly possibly tapping into things that are maybe not great. I think it's possible. But it's like this, it's always this fine line of like where I always say where is your heart? And I mean that like spiritually most of the time. It's like, where is your heart? I could do the Buddha thing, but if my heart's not there, it's just like a guy on his knees on a yoga mat with the Buddha statue. I don't believe that's doing anything.
Did we ever do an episode on idols or idolatry?
I don't think so. Did we?
Oh, I thought we did. Because I feel like
if not, we should.
I feel like it was maybe this summer. Not this summer, but a summer. Well, I don't know. I forgot. It's always hot here.
We did the spells and sorcery, Christian demonology. I don't think we did.
Maybe not directly.
No, I'm sure we've talked about
dabbled into. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we've talked about it. Okay, I'll add that because that'd be good. All right, I'll clean these up and add them to the top later, but oh yeah, that'd be a good one too.
Because I kind of see idols as like zip files to entire stories, all condensed down into like one shape or one symbol. And if someone looks at it, that entire mythology or entire story will be perceived just by looking at one symbol.
That's interesting.
It's like a shortcut.
That's interesting.
Oh,
I
like
don't-
Mecca, going to Mecca.
Or like a cross. I mean, the entire gospel, I mean, hell, the entire Bible can be broken down into a cross if
Yeah.
you know the story.
That's gonna.
If you don't, it's just two lines.
I've heard somebody explain it as like idols are something that takes you away from God, and an icon is something that points you towards God.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's.
I mean, that sounds like a clever. I don't know.
I think that's
That
a
doesn't make
Catholic
sense to
thing.
me.
I think it's a Catholic thing. I remember like hearing that a lot as a kid. I could be wrong about that, but at the very least, we were taught that a lot as a kid. That's kind of the difference between the two. They would do a similar thing with worship versus veneration, mostly in context of Mary, but like all the saints as well. That description that Patricia you gave on idolatry, I actually to a point kind of agree with, but the whole kind of phrase, I don't know. It seems too simple, I guess.
Because, like, you know, Vanessa brought it up. When you look at St. Christopher, you're thinking of an entire story and concept all from one image.
You could be.
Yeah.
Do you think everybody
And
does,
I don't
though?
see what, well, people are layered, and some people will look at it like that, and then some people will look at it more superstitiously.
True.
I think, yeah, that's where the faith is. Because even if you think about God, like, okay, you're praying for someone because they're sick, and you think of all the people that were healed from God, right?
It's do you believe? It's like, show me an upside down cross, which has become, this thing for Satanism. I mean, for a while, but it's become popular again. I don't see it. Like, I wouldn't see that. I wouldn't see this. I wouldn't have this greater image of like Satanism. I see them frequently, and to me, it just looks silly. Like, I see it as a silly thing. But I may be jaded, or maybe I've just, I don't know. I don't really ever see that with anything though. Like, they're very. I'm trying to think, because that's an interesting thought. I'm sure it's true in a lot of cases. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But I don't know if there's anything like that as a symbol or an icon or whatever that I see, and I get this, this great picture, unless most of it's subconscious, which I guess to a degree, you're probably right. It probably does happen.
It's subconscious, yeah.
It probably does happen. Well, I'm gonna try to pay attention now. But I want to talk about the zip file thing though when we do a Tuesday, because that's interesting.
Yeah, I'll try to meditate on it. I really do think they're just shortcuts.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah, but the zip file thing, I wanna expand on that a little bit, because
maybe like
really
what's inside of the zip file is the subconscious processing of whatever is being shown to you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is similar to what Carl Jung talked about, and just how there's a lot of subconscious stuff that when you look at one thing, it'll just unlock all kinds of stuff. And I don't know, I'm not an expert on it, but that's what I think of when I hear idol.
Yeah. I don't know. I want to get into that now. I put it down.
I want to know why it was forbidden.
See, there's a lot to that I find really interesting. And then throughout like the early, some of the early periods of Christianity, you see this kind of ebb and flow of the practice of it or the involvement of it. And then the other side of that would be like the Christians who severely opposed it. And it ebbed and flowed together. And so then to me, it's like a matter of, well, are those more sociological things that are happening? Because we see that with a lot of stuff. Or is it more of like the actual wrestling with the understanding of the text and what was being said and what was actually believed and what was being directed of by God? It's really interesting. Idolatry has always really fascinated me for a lot of different reasons. So we'll definitely get into that. But I have to run. I love you all very much. And Tuesday, unless I send something in the announcements late, so very sorry in advance, but there's a slight possibility that we don't get back in time. I will post it in the announcements. I will remove the event from Discord and I will remove the video from YouTube. So it will be very clear that we're no longer doing it. Otherwise, the YouTube video is already up for the live stream on Tuesday. It's not this YouTube channel. It's the Tattoo Theist one, so that we can speak freely. And everything else is good to go. So we'll see. Hopeful that we get back in time and can start this week. Otherwise, we'll start next week for sure. And then Thursday, we will continue in the Apocrypha. We're finishing up the second book of Adam and Eve. And I believe we'll be starting the Giants book, because I really want to read that. So I think we're going to dive into that, and it should be very interesting. Lucio, some of the fertility idols were the equivalent of pornography. Ooh, I want to say something, but I'm not going to. I got to go. We will do the idols thing. It's on the list. It's on the list. It's on the list. So we'll do it. I love you guys. I'm going to roll. Have a lovely night, and I'll see you Tuesday, hopefully, 7 p.m. Central Time.